Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be going over how to distinguish every single country that has Google coverage in North America. So let's just get right into it. So the first step here is this no passing sign. It's like a yellow triangle. And you'll only find this in America, so it's a really good way to distinguish the US and Canada. Next up we have this sign that you'll find at these like T intersections in Canada, and it'll have this checker pattern on the outside of the sign. And yeah, if you see this sign, it'll always be in Canada, and it's another really good way to distinguish the US versus Canada. Up next here, we have these octagonal poles, and these are almost always found in Mexico. You can find them in Colombia sometimes, but they are much more common in Mexico. So if you see one of these, it would be a good idea just to send in Mexico. Now, here we actually have two metas. Now, first is the Guatemala car, which almost everybody knows, I would say. You've got these four roof racks with the mirrors visible, but then also if you see these like red paint on the bottom of the poles, that's super common in Guatemala, and you'll almost always be in Guatemala if you see the bottoms of poles painted red. Now here we've got Panama, and in Panama you'll have this kind of like low cam, and there will I'm pretty sure always be car meta. So here there's one example of where you can see like the front of the car and the antenna. And then here's an example of the car being fully blurred, but you can still tell that there's like car meta and stuff. And then there's another car where it's like the big white truck, like you'll see sometimes in Senegal or like in the UAE or Qatar. Now here we've got the Dominican Republic, and in the Dominican Republic, you'll have these four roof racks with like a black little part in the middle of the roof racks, and then you'll have this white front of the car, and then you can sometimes have the mirrors visible. But yeah, the best way to distinguish it is with the black on the roof rack, and then also the white front of the car. And then if you see a ridge north, or like mountains north, you'll be in Santiago de los Caballeros, which is this northern city. And if you don't see a ridge north, you'll usually just be in Santo Domingo. Next up here, we've got Puerto Rico. And in Puerto Rico, you'll have the standard U.S. territory antenna, which you'll find in, U.S. territories. Except the little ball on top of the antenna will be white, opposed to like Guam in the Northern Mariana Islands, which it will be black. Next up here we have the U.S. Virgin Islands, and you can find two different cars in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and you can find this red car, which is always on the southern island of St. Croix, and you can also find this white car here, which can be found on both islands, but it's usually found on the northern island. So if you see this white car, it's usually a good idea just to send on the north island, and then the red car will always be the south island. Next up we have the Bermuda car, which is just this black car. It kind of looks like the car that you'll find in Nuuk, Greenland, except it's a little bit beefier, I think, and it's black instead of gray, and you'll be able to see the two mirrors, and this is really helpful because you can only find this in Bermuda. Finally, here we have the Curacao car, which will have these four roof racks that you can see with a black front to the car. So it's distinguishable between the Dominican Republic because it has a black front to the car and no black in the roof racks, and then Guatemala because there's no mirrors and you can see the black front of the car. And this is another really good one to know because this is only found in Curacao.